Now, more of Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Opportunity Project, the only show directly addressing the problems and solutions for Illinois. Now, from AM 560, here's Dan Proft.
Welcome back to Illinois Rising. I'm Pat Hughes of the Illinois Opportunity Project, filling in for Dan Proft. Joining me today as my co-host is the producer of our show, Joe Kaiser. And Joe, let me tell you who had a bad week. You think anyone at home thinks that they had a bad week? Let me tell you who had a worse week politically, and that is big ol' JB Pritzker. This week, it was revealed. JB used to talk to the governor back when the governor was Rod Blagojevich, who's serving like another 10 years in federal prison for trying to sell the Senate seat and other misdeeds. And they have this guy on tape saying some incredible stuff. And let me just play you a clip right now to give you a flavor of exactly what we're talking about.
I got a great idea for you, though.
Okay.
I'm sure you thought of this one, but Jesse White. Even though I know you guys aren't bosom buddies or anything, it covers you on the African American thing.
Correct.
He's totally, he's Senate material in a way that Emil Jones isn't, if I may say.
Okay.
He's just, I don't know how to say it exactly, but Emil's a little more crass.
Right.
And it opens up the Secretary of State spot, which is the key spot,
right?
Controls jobs, et cetera, and it'd be a lot less pressure on you. You don't have to put an African American in that spot.
Correct.
Joe, I have been doing politics and following politics for a long time. If a Republican office holder of any consequence or of no consequence, or the spouse of a Republican office holder, or the brother-in-law of a Republican office holder, or, someone who met a Republican office holder at a gas station said this, the Republican office holder's career would be over. It would be over. They would excoriate them. What do you say about the specifics of take us through what this guy just said?
Well, there's a couple layers to this. We'll break it down. First, he's saying appointing Jesse White to the Senate seat being vacated by Barack Obama would cover Rod Blagojevich on the African American thing, the thing that is trying to appease a group of voters. So he's talking about a racial demographic as political pawns. So right there, that's racially insensitive, borderline racist. He should be getting pounded by that. And some people are calling him out for it, not enough. But then the second thing is he's saying it opens up the Secretary of State job for somebody to appoint to have all the patronage jobs that go along with it. And a lot of people casual voters might not know about the patronage system, but this has been something that's going on for over 100 years in Illinois. It's just the epitome of what's wrong with politics in the state. And J.B. Pritzker is just going along with it, saying, hey, this is the reality. You can have the patronage jobs from the Secretary of State office. He probably is aware of them that the speaker doles out to representatives. He looks like both an insider from this clip, because he's been talking to the Governor Blagojevich on several different tapes. From these tapes, he looks like an insider, which he is, and then two, on this one, a kind of racially insensitive, kind of racist in the way he views an entire demographic of voters, that these are the pawns that I can use for political gain.
Yeah, I totally agree. Look, when he says, he's basically saying, hey, of all the black people in the world, this is like that movie Get Out. Have you seen that movie, right? Mm-hmm. Where white people, white liberals are going around, talking about the athletic ability of African Americans and all this other nonsense. If you haven't seen that movie, you should, because this is exactly what it's talking about. It's talking about liberal white people who claim to be, on the side of African Americans, where while what they're doing is they see these people as one giant block vote, right? Which is disgusting and insensitive and terrible. And that's what JB is doing. He's actually ranking which African American office holder is acceptable to be in the Senate. And he says that Emil Jones he struggles to find a word, and he says crass. God knows what he really wanted to say, right? And he says Emil Jones is too crass. And then I think the kicker from a race perspective is this. Let's send Jesse White, who ironically ended up becoming the Secretary of State, which is the irony of this, right? Let's send Jesse White to the Senate, okay, with 100 people, and he'll vote our way. but let's make sure we get the right guy who's going to hand out all the patronage jobs, who's going to run the division that really matters to greasing the skids in politics, like you just said. And that guy, we're going to have that guy be white. That's That's really what's being said here. In the job we think's really important, let's put a white guy in there. And in the job that we don't really care about, let's put the most acceptable, using his terms, African American in there. And that is what is unbelievably racist in this commentary, unbelievably disgusting. It makes me sick. It makes you sick. But we're conservative Republicans. Aren't we supposed to be the ones who are racist and homophobic and transphobic and this phobic and that phobic? And JB Pritzker is a charlatan. This proves that he's got some racial animus towards African Americans, and propping up an African American woman as his running mate isn't going to save him in this instance. What do you think?
And then he uses that gesture. So the gesture, let's say they did appoint Jesse White to the Senate seat in a different world. That gesture would have been used by Blagojevich on the campaign trail to say, to appeal to black voters. Like you said with his running mate, Juliana Stratton, maybe he thinks that's the gesture that appeals to that community. But in reality, whether you're black, white, Hispanic, whatever, the things that people should be voting on, the things that should be important in this campaign are expanding opportunity in the state. That's what should appeal to black voters, to Hispanic voters, to white voters, is how is the state going to change its jobs climate, change its business climate, to improve lives of people going forward. That's how you appeal to the black community, how you appeal to the Hispanic community, to voters all across the state. Those are the things that really matter, not the gesture of, hey, I'm going to appoint somebody of this racial demographic to this office or this office. Those are just empty platitudes. That's just placating to a base. And I think it's being exposed right now by some of the reaction. I mean, you have some African-American politicians, Tony Preckwinkle, Christian Mitchell, obviously Juliana Stratton, who are defending him for political purposes. But other people are starting to notice, and I think voters are starting to notice all across the spectrum of who J.B. Pritzker might really be.